Everyone, welcome to another Data Vault Innovators Community Masterclass. Once again, I'm joined by Michael Olschimke. Good morning, Michael. And
Hey, Julien.
Ebersohn. Hey, Nols. Good afternoon.
G'day.
So just quickly to mention before we get started today, next month we have a very special guest, the creator of Data Vault, Dan Linstedt, joining us. So make sure that you get onto the forums because we'll be inundated with questions for Dan, and so we're only going to take questions from the forums on the DVIC portal. So make sure you get onto that, load your questions up, and we'll try and get to as many of those as we can when we have Dan join us. So that's something not to be missed. But obviously we have two very esteemed brains to pick this evening or this afternoon or this morning, depending on where you're at in the world. So let's jump into that. We've got a couple of questions. Actually, I've got 5 questions here that I want to go through, guys. So the first one's a little bit of a long one, so let me read through it. I run a small computer repair business, but we're looking at getting accreditation to work with a much bigger global brand. So we need to update our data management structures so they'll work for us, access some historical data, and comply with both outside organisations' own bespoke data management systems and GDPR. Data Vault feels like the right fit, but what are the steps that we should go through to confirm this, and what should we do to prepare our business for the changes? So, Michael, given that you are our GDPR expert, we'll start with you.
Okay, cool, thanks. The first thing is what I would what I hear sometimes is that the complaint essentially that Data Vault is good for very large enterprises, but not or enterprise data warehouse systems, but not for the small case, and I don't agree with that. If you have let's say a low set of requirements, the Data Vault is also very simple. It could be just be a let's say a non-business link about the maybe service requests, and then some hubs around it for customers, the products, maybe the store where you did the repair and so on. A couple of satellites on the hubs, maybe a non-HISA satellite on the non-HISA link. Very simple design. And then you can quickly derive a star schema from this, just visualize it out essentially. So in a very small case, the Data Vault is also simple as long as you have a low number of requirements. But then, yeah, sure, when you have GDPR ISO requirements, it's not actually, it's just one more requirement essentially. So the idea would to split the satellite based on the personal classification of the incoming attributes. So you have a bit more entities, right? So that's number one. So start with a small use case. Maybe if you're a smaller case, then you have less requirements, and then the Data Vault should be more simple essentially. And then what I would typically do is, in order to introduce Data Vault in a client, we start in the first step. We start with a sprint where we assemble the team, where we make sure we have the resources available, the servers, the infrastructure, the cloud infrastructure, and so on. The room where we can work, the licensing of the tools that we need, the laptops, the user account, and so on. And then in the next sprint, we look at an architecture. So you might have already something in mind how you want to set up the Data Vault enterprise data warehouse. So you look at some layers, maybe some staging areas, maybe in the data lake, maybe some raw Data Vault layer where you have the raw data, the business vault, and the information mart. Set it up and see if you can shoot some data, some actual data from an actual source, all through the layers into the target. Once you've done with that, next sprint would then focus on the implementation of some business value, some actual reports, sprint by sprint essentially. That's the basic idea how I would essentially introduce Data Vault to the business or to the organization.
And we certainly know of lots of people who have built and managed Data Vaults by themselves as the single resource in an organization. Nols, I know you did exactly that. Do you have any perspective on this particular question?
There's a couple of things that comes to mind, and I'm in agreement with Michael that, in fact, I'll be a little bit more extreme. The smaller the organization, the more they need a Data Vault. They will suffer from less integration because it's a smaller organization, therefore less development across a strategic approach or those type of things. So they will struggle with the big organization problems more so than they do with large organizations, which do drive out some of the integration aspects as such from digital strategies, etc. But I want to step back a little bit and say, if you're a small computer repair business and you're starting to play in a much bigger field, it is always good to sort of just sit back, articulate clearly what exactly you want to achieve from a strategy perspective, and that helps them drive exactly where you want to do and the kind of things you need to have in place. And so clearly integration to an external source, absolutely necessary, and Data Vault shines when it comes to integration. You'll have some additional heightened security and access requirements, GDPR being one of them. You will have to essentially be able to rapidly address additional impacts or outside demands from outside organizations for the accreditation. And so the ability to respond quickly, having a clear statement of your strategy, your approach, and your rigor that you are putting in place will be necessary as part of that accreditation, whether you like it or not, more often or not. So that's, I would say that sort of step back, do the strategic thinking, and then finding the approach that helps you to deal with those challenges are key. Now, Data Vault does and has reliably demonstrated that it does give you the ability to rapidly adapt and adopt and integrate across a number of bespoke or heterogeneous systems. And so that does bring the necessary flexibility that you have. Now, the beauty, and this is sort of to your question, Julien, small organizations also tend to be, me, myself, and I decide what is the best thing. And so sometimes you get to do innovative things very quickly and very rapidly without too much sort of political drag and overhead and those type of things. So that is certainly the case that you can do. So sometimes Data Vault is achieved, not because people understand necessarily what they are subscribing to, but they essentially look at the features and functions thereafter, and you go, well, that's what Data Vault provides, and that is essentially a great springboard for you then to demonstrate and prove. Like all business sponsors, they are somewhat skeptical, and that is excellent, which means that if you delight them, they're a champion for life. So those are the kind of opportunities that in smaller organizations really is a little bit more exciting than larger organizations. Less politics, less issues to deal with, per se. But as a small organization, building a foundation like this, where you can respond in a much broader environment with larger organizations and essentially outperforming the larger organizations, is certainly one of the things that you can achieve as such. So all the best with taking the small repair business into a larger scheme.
Yeah, it sounds like a journey, doesn't it, Michael?
Just one comment. Sorry. We have seen multiple cases where a relatively smaller organization has built a data warehouse with Data Vault, had a solution running, and they had reports and everything else, got taken over by a larger corporation, and they realized, up in the new headquarters, they realized, well, our enterprise data is not as good as theirs. So they really had a struggle, essentially. And then when political concerns come in, when the smaller firm that you just purchased over can't have a better solution than yours, that's a really fun environment. But yeah, we've seen these situations a lot, actually.
We have also seen that. And I think maybe when you're smaller, it's easier to be more agile, right? And do things in small chunks. You don't have big executives saying, I want the world. But do you think that kind of applies, Michael, to someone who's dealing with a departmental solution as well, where they maybe they're not part of an enterprise data warehouse, but more a departmental warehouse? Is it the same approach?
Yeah, that's what we also have with a couple of clients where they build an enterprise data with the department only, not for the central enterprise or for the central enterprise, essentially. So that's why it is. What I always strongly suggest to them, essentially, is to establish standards. So if there's already some other department building on a data vault and they already have some standards in place, go there, use them, even if you don't agree with them fully, right? If it's good enough, if there's no mistake in it, if there's no issue in it, go for it and use it, because then you can essentially join these independently developed data solutions. You can join them as long as they follow the same standards, naming conventions, hashing, especially hashing, and so on. So modeling styles and so on. That's what I would suggest.
Yeah, very cool. All right, we're going to move on to question 2. Nols, you can start with this one. So can you tell us about sharding and how that works in Data Vault?
Oh, this is going to date me. Okay, sharding. Let's just demystify sharding as such. The techniques that, if you're an old fossil like myself, we used to call these things partitioning. And so sharding and partitioning is, in essence, from an ideas perspective, largely similar. I know, I get it. Some of the technologies out there have put a twist on it and, expanded on the technical capabilities and all the rest. But largely from a concept perspective, it's very similar. So how does it work in Data Vault? It works very well if you understand how to get the best performance out of whatever chosen platform or technology you're dealing with. So if your platform does support sharding, then again, understanding the behaviors and the query patterns that are most frequently required in your data set, sharding will be benefit tremendously from that understanding. So it does depend on your technology and it does depend on your platform as to what the extent or the features and functions necessarily would be. So I can't go and give you an exact definition for each one of the varying platforms out there that does support sharding formally or partitioning, otherwise known. And so from that perspective, you need to understand your query patterns to get the best out of your sharding in due course. So, and of course, sharding is two-dimensional. It's just basically it is what you have in front of you, and if the business questions change, the sharding may need to be revisited. Your mileage may vary, again, depending on the tech. Some platforms do not suffer the same kind of reorganizational maintenance as others. I will not name and shame. I'll leave it just at that statement.
Anything to add, Michael?
Yeah, so first of all, I agree with Nols. Especially in large data sets, you really want to control or design your data layout, let's say that. On the other hand, what you see also is that in data vaults, there are some certain concepts that play hand in hand now. First of all, there's some patterns how we derive dimensions and facts. Dimensions is essentially selected where you select from the hub or the business keys and then join the satellite deltas, while facts is primarily focused on the links, where you join from the granularity from the links and then join the satellites attached to the links. That's a basic pattern. So you always join from the parent to the satellites. And what we do in Data Vault, in order to distribute records across the MPP cluster, we always distribute shard by the hash key. The cool thing now is when you follow this distribution layout, at least for the 99% of your data, in this case, the hash key of the business key is the same as the hash key in the delta describing the business key. It must be the same because it's based on the same business key. So the hash key is the same. What happens is if that becomes your primary index, your records will stay on the same node. And that means that the dimension member, for example, stays on the same node with the business key and the descriptions from the satellites, and we can join the descriptions to the business key inside the node without essentially having queries running across nodes, which we want to prevent because of performance issues. So we want to join inside the node. What happens next is, then let's say you have thousands of nodes where all your dimension members are stored, all your facts. Every node has a subset of the dimension members or a subset of the fact records. The node can join the records together, and then the slave nodes or the compute nodes, they will send then the records to the master node, where these these dimension members will be unionized. So that pattern, how we distribute the records based on the hash key by default and the query patterns, that goes along essentially. And that's the cool thing, and it's by design actually.
And sharding and partition, so sharding and distribution and so on is used interchangeably in a number of different vendor conversations and vendor and technologies.
Yeah.
And so that's why I was very careful with the definition of sharding, because of this confusion that exists in the marketplace between sharding, distribution, and sometimes they use to say meaning the same thing, and sometimes it means it's actually different. And you can have both, sharding and bucketing, the other technical term if you want to really look into it, and a combination of both. So an excellent question. perhaps a definition of exactly what the sharding was pointing to could help. But essentially, thanks for the question. That's a good one.
Is it only ever done for performance reasons? Is there other reasons why people do that?
Massive data volume, because just in order to process massive data volume, you need to have a cluster system in place somehow, right? And for that, you need to decide how to distribute the records on the cluster, essentially.
Yeah, great. Yep. Well, that was just my question for my knowledge. So, because there's obviously some people joining that aren't quite as technical as both of you, so I thought I'd clarify that. And obviously, if you are watching this and you're on either the YouTube channel or in the platform, then make sure that you drop your questions into the chat. We are monitoring that. So even if it doesn't make it today, it'll make it into the feed. As I said at the start, though, obviously we're only going to select questions from the platform, the DVIC platform, for the session next month with Dan. All right, guys, on to the next one. All right, Michael, what risks and benefits do you see AI bringing to the way people use Data Vault in the future?
Okay, so I would say that there's some hype around AI, right? So there's this assumption that AI can solve everything now. Well, that's questionable, right? So I mean, AI makes mistakes. AI simulates or emulates naturalists, or actually learns from past decisions. So if you have, let's say, humans making past decisions, it will learn from that. But what if AI makes the past decisions? What if you manipulate past decisions, right? So there's also a risk that there might be AI-driven decisions which are plain wrong, and we have to essentially think about that one, and in the solution adjust for that essentially. That's number one. But on the other hand, think about this: without AI, we see more and more data, and there's an exponential growth of data at the moment, right? So and even in the past and in the future, data volume grows exponentially because we're producing more and more data. AI is now producing more data, and so on. There's more and more data available, and we need to analyze this data. But on the other hand, when you look at the universities, there's only essentially a linear, scalable number of new people coming into the industry, and will not raise. It will not grow exponentially how many students come out of it, right? So there's only a limited number of students who pass the final exams and become a data scientist. And how do we deal with this? There's a gap, and this gap is widening because more and more data is available, and only a number of new data scientists, new database professionals come into the market essentially. So we got a structural problem for the future. That's an issue, and we can only solve this gap, or close this gap to some extent, with the use of AI. It's not killing jobs; it's really just dealing with the ever-growing volume of data essentially.
Absolutely, I agree. Nols, have you got any AI-related comments?
How to govern the answers that AI produce is a hot topic. And so the guiding and governing the results and having a reliable, consistent answer coming back, particularly just because AI is a hot topic, doesn't mean that governance and oversight and those type of things will reduce. In fact, it'll increase dramatically because of the influence of AI, and what is real and what's not real, and what's manufactured or not manufactured becomes a real challenge. And organizations but I didn't make that decision, but it looks like you did. And so the governance, how to guide your large language models or your AI initiatives will become more and more a hot topic. And I think Data Vault offers actually a unique opportunity in that, because relationships are explicitly provided as a structure or as a known within the data sets, you can start training your AI models or your AI engines to recognize those as the guide rails, the tracks on which this train needs to deliver the goods on, and only on this track. And so because it's actually the intersection of all the processes, the assumptions, the correlations within your data is around those elements.
Security going.
One last comment. I agree. The thing is, when your organization is making decisions either by humans or with AI, nobody cares that AI made the decision. You are responsible as an organization. So you really want to make sure that the models are essentially, you want to watch what the AI is deciding, essentially. You want to monitor that. And I mean, a single decision by the AI, you're responsible, period. There's no way around that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing a lot of reading in this for just for our strategic team, and it's really interesting because if you ask a question, maybe if you ask how many points are left on my license in Australia, we have points on our license, and when they run out, your license is cancelled, so don't speed. And so if I was using an AI and I asked that question, how many points are left on my license, obviously it needs to understand the context of the license, the points, understand the context of the question I'm asking, but it also needs to go and get a specific number. And that number isn't going to be stored in a content store of text of documents. It's going to need to get that from the warehouse. So there's definitely a benefit, I think, in the way Data Vault, can, as Nols was saying, manage the relationship, but also deliver actual facts to the AI to then say, well, yes, I understand your question, and also here is your answer. I think that that's a big part of it. It is amazing what ChatGPT can do around, write a paragraph around how awesome Data Vault is, or whatever else. But if you think about it from a business perspective, it is going to be a combination of that conversational context as well as specific facts, and those facts need to be delivered from a transactional set of data. And so I think that the question was actually what benefits could AI bring to Data Vault, but I think there's a huge benefit in what Data Vault can bring to AI implementations, from the security and auditability and the delivery of the relationships and the delivery of those facts.
Yeah, one comment on that line. We use in data mining projects, we use CRISP-DM, which is essentially an agile approach for data mining, and that works perfect. It's perfectly aligned with the agile approach in Data Vault, because as a data scientist, as a data mining specialist, I need more and more data sprint by sprint. So I don't know which attribute I need eventually, right? So I'm building some model, a first shot, with some data from the data warehouse, some raw data, some cleans data, which is all available in the data warehouse. But then I go back, I look at the model, I want to improve it. So I go back to the data warehouse and ask for more, essentially. More raw data, more cleans data, process data, and so on. So establishing this cycle is great. And that works well with Data Vault, because you can quickly produce more raw data, more cleans data, prepare the data, load the data in feature stores, and give it essentially to the data scientists.
Yeah, absolutely. And we already, we've had multiple conversations around, the ability to audit and deliver lineage and be sure that the value you're looking at is actually correct. Well, we can actually extend that to say the value that the AI delivered as a part of its answer was actually correct, and we can show where that came from. So it's a big question, because obviously there is going to be AI that helps us do data vaults, in some way. In some form. We all know that that's gonna be there to help us all as data engineers. But also there is a huge part that we're seeing as far as Data Vault is going to help AI to actually be reliable. So it's an interesting future. All right, we've got one more question. So for Nols, for you, I guess. Is it possible to use Data Vault in a data mesh implementation while maintaining data product boundaries and ownership?
That's an excellent question. It is one of those things it's a hot topic in the marketplace at the moment. There's quite a few people that are looking at a data mesh approach to and creating product ownership, product or products, data products, etc. The two, Data Vault and data mesh, in fact, overlap in what they try to achieve materially in the different ways that data mesh speaks of. Okay, I've got key concepts, or I've got these, I forget the technical term that they use for it as such, but essentially the central business idea. That's exactly what your business keys are all about. It talks about the ownership and the governance, and it requires very specific governance around, all right, who owns it, where does it come from, what is its state, what is its quality, all of those elements, all of that additional metadata and context and so on needs to exist in a catalog that's searchable, and you can go and find the products and such. And from a Data Vault perspective, those ideas of ownership and products and so on is being trotted out for since it was published, because this is exactly what Business Vault does. Business Vault gives you the opportunity to create a specialized product that is integrated to the rest, that everyone can then leverage as a central element. And so extending and expanding the data products or in your organization with somebody specifically owning and managing that concept or that product as such is extremely well supported. It also makes the whole data mesh development, the implementation of it, very clear, because the approach, the methodology, the standards are absolutely critical for data mesh implementations in an organization. So the rigor required for data mesh is in fact requiring a platform like Data Vault to provide the necessary backbone for the processing and delivery of these artifacts as data products within an organization. So it's actually a very well matched set of ideas that are remarkably similar in what they require to be successful.
Yeah, Michael, I know you guys have done some data mesh work as well. I'm sure you've got a perspective on this.
So, I mean, there's a huge overlap. I agree. From a data vault perspective. So first of all, data mesh defines the data products, the governance, the ownership, and so on. Fine. But it doesn't define how to implement a data product, for example. What's the interns? How do you actually implement this, right? I mean, we see more of that in Data Vault, how we model data with using Data Vault and so on. And from a Data Vault perspective, the data mesh is essentially a highly distributed enterprise data warehouse where you have individual components you could use and build them with Data Vault and other options. And most of our clients, they have a mix of options. That's what it is. But you could use Data Vault for your components, for your data products. And the thing about this, we have built systems where our clients were used essentially thousands of individual components or individual environments for running the enterprise data warehouse. Think about this: when you have a data warehouse on a ship or in a car, something, right? Then you have a highly distributed system, and each node would then deliver the results more to a headquarters or to a more central location. In such a scenario, when you distribute the enterprise data warehouse, especially highly distributed, you need standards. You can't distribute something or spread something without standards, because that's the definition of chaos. Everybody's doing what they want. Think when you build cars. From the outside, looks all great. It's all defined how a car looks like, a data product looks like, right? How the car looks like. But when you open up the engine area, well, everybody built the engine differently. So everybody had their own style. Everybody has their own standards. I mean, how would you maintain this? People leave the organization. They leave, and you are left with maintaining this new engine that you see for the very first time, because everybody built this differently, right?
Yeah.
So you really want to establish standards how you actually build these data products, and that's where Data Vault comes into play as well, where you have all these standards available.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back a little bit to what you were saying earlier on in the conversation, I think, because if you use the same standards as the modeling technique or hashing and naming convention, you can join those items together, and if you don't, well, then good luck.
Yep.
You're gonna. So it's kind of quick wins with maintainability. Is that's kind of what it feels like to me.
Yep. And what I would also like to stress is what I miss a bit. It's not just about data, right? It's always about raw data, but also useful information. And as a data scientist, I used to do a lot of data mining in the past. And as a data scientist, I want to always have access to the actual raw data and the information, the process information, the cleans information, and so on. I need both. And that's why I like to stress also that using Data Vault in a data mesh, you can not only share your information products, that's how I would call this, to be honest. You could share your information products, but also your raw data for these information products, and that's a cool thing. So yeah.
And I know there's a few large organizations that have used Data Vault to help them do their data mesh, and if you hit Google and type those words in, you'll find a few presentations, I'm sure, and may even be some of Scales Freezer stuff that I've stumbled across on the web. So definitely go have a look. And so look, that's our 30 minutes for today. So guys, thank you very much. Thank you very much for watching. If you're on the platform, then we'd love you to keep interacting. Our teams are both on the platform there to answer questions if you have anything technical or if you want to chat with someone around some of the concepts or ideas, or if you want to share photos of your dog, I suppose that's okay too. And if you're watching this through YouTube, then we encourage you to get onto the platform. It's free to sign up. And then you can actually join the community and get involved in some of those conversations, and you can post things that are interesting as well. So there's lots of stuff going on the platform. We've got lots of vendor sponsors who are putting interesting content up as well. So yeah, we just encourage you to stay in touch and make sure you get those questions in for Dan next month. So guys, we're done for today. Thank you very much for this masterclass. It was very interesting. I learned a lot, so I appreciate it. Have a great day.
Have a great day. See ya.